Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday.
Hello, Walnut. It's me, Lance, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and today is such a delicious, exciting episode because I have my very good friend and like all these other titles that we have of our love story, Rose. Welcome back to Walnut Wednesday, the podcast.
I am so excited to be here. I can't believe I get to come back for more than one episode. Like, one episode was a dream, so this is extra exciting now.
I love this and I can't wait to tell you. So Rose was on episode 48 of Walnut Wednesday, so way back before we even passed the 100 episode mark. So if you want to hear more about her story, you can scroll back through the episodes and hear all about human design, how she found it, what her type is, and all the things. But today we are talking about what being a soulpreneur means. So Rose, I will let you kind of take it away with this word and how it found you and how you resonate with it and what it means, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, so I love that we're able to talk about this here because I personally feel like Walnut Wednesday and walnutpreneurs, if we want to call them, are such a similar resonance to a soulpreneur. You know, they're one and the same essentially, and it is just really all about that essence of creating not only your soul purpose-led business life, everything that intertwines and touches each other, you know, because our businesses as soul-led individuals, women, witchy women, intuitive women, you know, we are not leaving our soul gifts at the door, essentially. We might have a physical workplace or workspace we go to where we practice or we share our work through other means, you know, our essence through other means, but we also have the ability to, you know, literally be sitting on our couch at home in our pajamas, sharing our soul work. And that's where it infuses through so many different aspects of our life and what we do and how we show up every day. And it really is, I guess, for me, the anchoring in of new paradigm in soul-led business. It is the experience of being someone who is prepared to follow that soul calling, that nudge at your soul, even if it doesn't necessarily make immediate sense, or even if it doesn't make logical sense to others around you, because so many soulpreneurs, especially women, might have kept their soul gifts hidden away or, you know, dimmed their light in order to fit in mainstream sort of society that we've been told, you know, finish high school, get the degree, move on to get the steady job. You know, there's so many pressures that come up along the way that unless we've been really grounded in who we are, what our unique path is, what our unique set of soul gifts is or are, you know, we can often then be in that space of going, oh, well, this is what I feel truly inside, but I don't necessarily know that the rest of the world is going to be welcoming or accepting or understanding. And you know, in our last episode we did together, we talked a lot about like sensitivity and entrepreneurship and how being an empath has such an impact on that. And that's what I often find is that, you know, anyone who identifies themselves as soul-led or a soulpreneur or a walnut even, we're often in that energetic realm where we're highly sensitized to the world around us, and we might be somewhere on the spectrum of introverted, extroverted, any nuance in between, empathic, picking up on the unseen, the unknown, and that comes through and informs everything we do. So, you know, it really is welcoming all of that and celebrating that about ourselves, and still celebrating that our path to success comes about with all of these things as part of us. You know, we're not trying to hide those things away or pretend they don't exist. We're going, actually, you know what? Yes, I am all of these things, and I am wildly successful, and I am amazing at what I do, and I am deserving of being paid well for my soul work. And, you know, I welcome the path that often comes through things like overwhelm, burnout, self-doubt, self-judgment. You know, those are all part of the story. It doesn't mean that you're any less brilliant at what you do. So it's really just a celebration of your individuality, I guess, in the way I see things.
Yes, I agree. And there's such a link to being a walnut within that, but I think that you portray that so well. Like, you're probably one of my most favorite examples of someone who like 100% will just slay in their lane, because what you do is so specific to you and what you like and how you want to like lead your soul best life, you know. And Walnut, one thing I wanted to sort of touch on as well with this like doing you and individuality stuff was, Rose and I were actually chatting offline, and we're like, I woke up like, I'm not feeling so well, and Rose was like telling me where she is in her cycle, and it was like two little recovering people pleasers being like, do you want to postpone, if you and we decided that, you know, I love recording this podcast, Rose has got some delicious drops of wisdom, so it's that showing up when you're not everything is like what you see on Instagram, right? It's all just like ebbing and flowing through life rather than it being like a big sunshine rainbow all the time. Would you kind of agree, Rose, in terms of soulpreneurship?
Yeah, 100%, that it's welcoming the days when you're not feeling not feeling the best. It's welcoming the days when you are feeling yourself, and it's welcoming all the nuances in between. And this is something that, you know, particularly in human design terms, right? We know that if you have emotional authority, for example, which 50% of the world do, you're going to have days you wake up and you're just low. You know, you're just low and you just don't know why. And it's not because you've done something, or it's not because you caused it to happen, or it's not because you're not high vibe enough or whatever. And you still get to show up and be amazing and be welcomed and be successful in all phases and stages. And also, like, that example of us getting on, you know, just to message each other and check in, because that's a big celebration of it as well, right? Is having the self-awareness to say, actually, this means nothing about us. If we don't record it today, the invitation is there, because we've all been on the journey of the conditioning around people pleasing and committing to something when you've said yes to it, and not daring to ask for an alternative date or an alternative time, you know, because that's such conditioning as well, especially for empathic, intuitive women, that we're kind of afraid to be seen as inconsistent, undependable, you know, unreliable, all of these things that we have always been typically told are not the keys to success, when actually we can flip the script and go, well, actually, these are things that put us in our power, because we are showing up at the time that we are able to share from a place of empowerment rather than exhaustion or overwhelm or burnout. And in the case of today, we knew, we were just like, well, actually, we're still really fired up about this. Like, let's fucking go, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. It was just like, it was kind of like a no-brainer, even though we were umming and ahhing. It was like, peel all the layers back. Bottom line is, we want to be here.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Rose, I would just love to touch on for a little bit how your walnuttings got you to where you are now. Like, from how you're speaking about being a soulpreneur, what I'm trying to say is that you sound so content and satisfied and comfortable with, you know, where you are at in your journey, and you speak to it in a way of like the wise sage, projectiness, that it makes me feel motivated and sparkly and inspired to continue to slay in my lane, follow my own walnut journey and things like that. So I'd like to know a little bit about the road to finding that, I'm doing air quotes, Walnut, if you're not watching, confidence, because you seem really confident and comfortable with where you are.
Oh, well, thank you. Because it's been a journey. It's been a fucking journey. And I think really it has just been that deepening into trusting myself and knowing myself, and that clarity that comes through from the work that I do, or I've been gifted with the privilege of doing, you know, in terms of bringing in human design, astrology, gene keys, you know, all of these elements that form sort of the modalities or the language I'm talking in all the time. But it's really given me the permission slips that I needed to understand myself, understand my energy, understand how my energy ebbs and flows, and understand how I need so much alone time. And that actually running a business for me looks different to 99% of probably what has been traditionally explained to be the way to have a successful business, because energetically it just doesn't serve me. It would drain me. You know, the concepts around showing up every day, the concepts around having consistent routines when it comes to social media. Yeah, exactly. You know, all of this, what's the phrase I'm looking for? The toxic productivity culture as well, you know, like all of these things that, yes, if I'm lit up by my soul work and I'm writing, like you and I both know, because we've talked about this many times, I'll happily get up before dawn and be, you know, doing whatever I'm doing in terms of writing and allowing myself to be in that state of really tapping into whatever it is that I'm writing about in that moment. But also I allow myself plenty of days when I don't use an alarm clock and I sleep and honor, you know, what my body needs in terms of sleep and rest and taking naps during the afternoon if I need them, and, you know, all of these things. Because, yeah, I came from a background of, you know, not only corporate cubicle 9-to-5 type environments where the people were incredible. You know, I've got lifelong friends that I worked alongside and they were amazing human beings, but the actual work that was being done was soul sucking and awful, you know. And then moving into entrepreneurship in a very conventional way of entrepreneurship, that again was 80-hour work weeks, burnout, you know, overwhelm, and sort of going through that path of understanding that actually I still wasn't doing the thing that I'm here to do. I was bringing a vision to life that was somebody else's, but kind of with the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
You know? So it's been a real journey, because in all of those variations of my kind of path forward, I really always doubted myself and thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't keep up with others around me, or I was on I could work way harder than other people, but then I would crash and burn out the other side, and I just couldn't sustain it. So once I actually understood myself and had that clarity on myself, that's when everything really shifted for me to understand that, oh, actually, I get to make the own rules within my business. And there are far more definitions of success than just the simple metrics that often are so celebrated, especially in the online space. You know, the conversations around 6 figures, 7 figures, you know, all of these sorts of, I guess, monetary based goalposts that have been put out into the, you know, Instagram world around, oh, well, if you've done this, you've made it in business. But I'm sitting from my perspective going, actually, yes, okay, we absolutely, I want women and soulpreneurs and walnuts to be in overflow of abundance. I deeply desire that, you know, for women to be resourced and educated and empowered with money is just like perfection. But at the same time, we also get to celebrate success by a definition of any number of different things, like whether that's spending time with our loved ones, our kids, you know, getting to actually be not working, you know, and enjoying life and living life and taking trips away and having the time to cook a luxurious meal, and, you know, all of these things that are highly worthwhile and highly, you know, in my opinion, need to be celebrated or held up as the examples of success. Because I'm sure you've seen, Laz, in your work, the examples of people who financially have ticked every box of success. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, well-being wise, are probably rock bottom, right?
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's actually like, I'm sad for you.
Yeah.
and one thing. and
Instagram is great at showing the examples of the monetary success for a lot of people. It's very easy to snap a photo on your private jet with your glass of champagne and not speak to any of the hollowness or the I actually haven't taken a day off in 3 years kind of toxic environment that people have created for themselves. And it's only once they've been through that they suddenly realize, oh, well, shit, actually, the 6 figures wasn't worth it.
Yeah, exactly. I did a training with one of my other human design teachers the other day, and she said something along the lines of, the amount of money I make is the least interesting thing about me, which I was like, oh my God, yes. Like literally it's like one small part about being a soulpreneur, you know, like the money, we do need to celebrate the wins and the bing bongs and all the things, which we do, but it's not just about that, right? It's about having the life that you want, that you can create for yourself, rather than just be in this, like, what's the word you use, Rose, the cubicle 9 to 5-y, hustly, stressful, toxic product cubicle place, you know. So thank you for speaking to that. And what I also wanted to sort of touch on in this episode with you, before I raise the elephant in the room where my butt is just itching to talk about, I also wanted to quickly, Rose, touch on boundaries with you, because I feel like you are a very, like, pristine example of boundaries. And as you were talking, I was kind of reminded of, like, I think it was like even almost 2 years ago now, maybe a year too, when we were having a magic mind call, and I think some of us were in person and some not, and we got all excited about organizing a retreat or something, and you just, like, straight away were just like, awesome, but no. Like, but in the most, like, loving way, and then me just catching on all the vibes, being like, oh yeah, but in my, like, little head knowing that's going to make me very tired, and this little introvert is going to get to it and be like, oh no, this is going to be exhausting. You straight away you've kind of, like, got that next level of, like, boundaryship, and I know that's come with lots of, like, trials and tribulations. But could you speak to boundaries, especially with the Walnut in mind, who is sort of on that, just learning how to say yes or no in an empowered way?
Yeah, and it's such a part of the soulpreneur journey, right? Everyone has got their own different soul blueprint when it comes to this. And for some of us, we've actually come here with that being essentially, if you could look at it in terms of, like, what your soul came here to do is just even to learn boundaries and how to set boundaries and how to reinforce boundaries. And it will be a theme that comes up time and time again, no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, no matter how much fucking inner work you do, it's going to keep coming up. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And this is where I think we see examples of other people who go, oh yeah, I did this work, or I did this meditation, or I did this energy clearing, I did this healing, I did this workshop, and okay, now I'm sweet. And then for the people who are still experiencing it, that's where the self-doubt comes in of, like, oh well, shit, I've been doing this for, like, or consciously been doing this for ages now, and I still feel like it's coming up, it's testing me. It's, you know, I still find it hard to say no when actually I really, really want to. And yeah, it in terms of, if I can share anything from my own experience, is that coming back to that really simple concept of you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You can't give others your magic and your soul gifts if you are burnt out and can't get off the couch because you are so exhausted. And I've been there, you know, and I know that I'm not actually serving anyone by allowing myself to get to that state. And if anything, I'm doing a disservice to the world by being in that state. And it might sound selfish at first. And in many ways, you have to just find examples to show us people who are great boundary setters, or who do have the confidence to set boundaries and to hold to them. Because setting boundaries is one thing, as you know, and actually sticking to your boundaries is a completely different energetic experience as well. But we'll celebrate the little wins where we can. And yeah, I think in terms of probably my strength that came with learning how to do that was around the way I set up my business and the offers I put out in my business, of shifting away from either live offers or one-on-one type work in a very kind of lengthy capacity. And once I started shifting into more of pre-recording, if I was doing a masterclass, you know, pre-recording it in my own time when energetically I'm at my best, and then releasing that into the world and trusting that it will go where it needs to go, and that I don't have to be showing up live. I don't have to be showing up on a Zoom call one-on-one. You know, I can deliver things in the way that fills my cup, but also gives to other people. That was a huge part of it. And I think then that gave me the permission to understand that there are going to be a lot of things that would be amazing to go and do, but energetically, if it's going to drain me and deplete me and take away from my being my best, then we have to find other ways, you know, to still do the same thing. And then, you know, the example of that kind of retreat type experience, you know, I could still say to everyone that was going to be there, like, hey, I can, you know, essentially like jump in on a Zoom call for a few hours, and like we can have a kind of catch up in that way. But I don't need to put myself through the whole process of like traveling and flying and driving and, you know, all of these things that for me drain me. And I know that about myself after, you know, well over 30 years of doing that on the regular.
Yeah.
Whereas for someone else, that might energize them, you know. So this is where it is so important to understand yourself and not doubt yourself, and to really recognize that, yes, there might be, your best friend might love nothing better than jumping in the car and going for a road trip on the weekend, and it might vitalize them and might lift them up and might excite them and fill their cup. But if you come away like exhausted at even the thought of getting in the car,
I'm nodding Walnut like,
yeah, it's trusting that that's their kind of working with you for a reason. And it might be that it's just a now thing, that you're still in like energy depletion and you've got to fill yourself back up to the point that you can have capacity for that. Or it might be that genuinely it's giving you something that is a little reminder from the universe to be like, actually, you know what, you know, remember all the times you've gone and done this and it wasn't really that enjoyable for you. And maybe you could have just sort of lovingly said, you guys go, I'll catch up later, can't wait to see the photos, FaceTime me while you're there.
Yeah. And that's a journey in itself, to get to a place where you're not getting the FOMO anymore. I think that's something that I struggled with for a really long time, until I sort of had to like reality check myself with this saying no or saying yes thing, and go and asking myself, like Rose just kind of mentioned, is this gonna like make me feel good after, or am I gonna feel like insanely not rejuvenated? It's like the opposite. Am I gonna want to like be in bed for 5 days but not be able to, and have to keep going until I burn out? Like that in itself is a big thing. And then you see the photos on the Facebook and you're like, oh my God, I missed out on like this like binge drinking booze fest. It looks so fun, but there's like 500 photos. So obviously people weren't actually like engaging or talking. They were just taking lots of photos. And then you're like, maybe it was kind of good that I wasn't there, or whatever, you know, like, anyway. So I'm going into past Liz, old peanut stories, but I just wanted to showcase Walnut that, you know, that's a big thing in itself too.
Yeah, and that FOMO kind of thing does tie really into the boundaries, right? That it's, you know, we create for ourselves in our mind, sort of, we think, oh, well, what am I missing out on? What am I, you know, if I don't say yes to this, is everyone going to think less of me? Or, you know, should I be doing this? All the shoulds, right? Of, you know, should I be giving of myself? Should I be showing up? Should I be making time for this? And if there's ever a should attached to it, then we know that it's not really serving us at the end of the day. But if we can drop into that certainty of knowing, actually, you know what, this would really light me up, or I'm going to sit this one out, and I know that there are going to be other opportunities, or maybe the thing that you know you wanted to get out of that experience. So even if we're talking about something that is like related to your soul work, right? You know, maybe it's an opportunity for a conference or a workshop or a cacao ceremony or something like that, that, you know, on the face of it is very lovely, very supportive, very nourishing, but actually there might be other elements that you can look at and go, well, you know what, I would actually prefer to do a cacao ceremony that I can do from home in the comfort of my own lounge, and I can be in my like snuggly robe and I can be cuddling my dog, and that is going to fill me up and still give me the experience of taking part in that circle, because there's plenty of things like that we can do virtually, and do from our own space, or even in our own time with a recording. Or if we know that the actual act of going and being in presence, in person, is going to be the thing that we need, that's where knowing that about ourselves is really powerful as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the self-knowership stuff. And Walnut, if you want to go back to episode 48 with Rose, we speak to sort of like the different energy types and how to sort of, like, I feel like for me, learning about my human design and playing with that for a good like year or two, I'm still no expert, but that's kind of been a little bit of a catalyst, I'm sure, Rose, along with yourself, where it's opened up little experiments and doors to trialing the boundary thing, and to playing with what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and doing something even though you know it's not the best for you, but you learn something out of it. Like, really, that brings that intention into life. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It just gives you so much clarity on the things that you perhaps have always doubted about yourself. And I think that's the biggest gift that these sorts of modalities like human design gives us, because it just helps us to suddenly go, oh shit, that's why I am the way I am, and that's why you are the way you are, and that's why my entire childhood was the way it was. And, you know, it just suddenly, like, everything makes sense about ourselves, and we can have that permission slip to just be ourselves and to trust ourselves. Because before we have that trust in ourselves, that's when we make the decisions that we're not necessarily aligned for us, might have been aligned for someone else. And that's when, you know, when we talk about soulpreneurship and business that comes from soul-led business, so often what we've been told are the keys to success in business did work for someone else. And we see the examples every day of, I did this and this is what I had the result of in my business or my world or my bank balance. And yes, it worked for them. Absolutely. Perfectly. Because it was fucking aligned for them. Whereas for pretty much everyone else, there needs to be customization or tweaks, or, you know, take it with a pinch of salt, or leave what doesn't work behind, and maybe take the golden nugget of this concept and then refine it and tweak it and customize it for you, you know.
I love it. I agree. Yes. And I'm grinning like a dork grin, because something that I want to start talking about, especially on this podcast episode, speaking of permission, speaking of trust, speaking of customization, the elephant in the room is that Walnut, Rose, has walnutted so fucking big and has just self-published her first ever book. She's an author. You're an author. Well, you've always been an author, especially with sensitivity is your superpower, one of my favorite things of all time. But Rose, let's just go. You're an author. How do you feel? Speak on this for us.
It still is a little bit pinch me, is this actually happening? And it's very exciting. And as we've talked about in private many, many times now, that being an author can be quite a lonely experience.
Yeah.
And so it is very strange to get to the point when you're actually talking about it with the world and people can suddenly see the tangible thing. I've got a copy right here. Here's one I prepared earlier, and this is now a physical, tangible thing that people can see. But up until that point, it's hard to translate all of that across for people to really get a feel for what you're doing, in private a lot of the time. So it's very it feels amazing to now be at the stage where there is a physical, tangible thing that people can go and buy and have in their homes, and that she's going out to all these amazing places around the world. Like, it absolutely blows my mind, the places all over the world that she is making her way to as we speak and has already arrived in. I think that to me is just the most incredible thing ever, to know that it's the work I've been able to share from where I am and the reach that that's had. I'm just in awe. It's incredible.
Oh, I'm so proud of you and I'm so happy for you, and I'm just feeling the feeling again, because I'm only just kind of a year off having that same experience myself. And Walnut, if you didn't know already, I kind of have alluded to it but not quite said out loud, Rose is actually my client, my first ever real life client. So we've been talking a lot throughout her book writing process, well, just about the process in general, right? Just as things have come up and things like that. How have you found that, Rose? Just curiously, like, this is not an opportunity to lick my butt, but how have you felt having that somebody there alongside you? Because for me, having a person was probably one of the most, wouldn't recommend anything else, to be honest.
Oh, I can't even put words to it or value to it, because it's just been the process of feeling so supported by you throughout this entire journey has been so just insanely valuable for me, because again, it's a solo path you're walking, but to have someone there who can say, I've been through it, I know what you're going through, and also to hold the celebrations and to encourage the celebrations of the things that, again, don't seem very tangible. Before you have the printed thing in your hand, it's hard to really, well, I personally find it hard to celebrate the things that are the micro wins. And you're so fantastic at being able to remind me and, kind of inspire those mini celebrations along the way that are all part, like that connects through to so many different things in our life, and manifestation and, living in alignment and all of these things, that if we can't celebrate the really small stuff, then, it's the universe isn't exactly opening us up to the greatest possibility as well, because of the fact that we have to have that gratitude for what is in the right now, rather than living in that one day when mentality all the time. And of course, I just want to add as well that if anyone listening hasn't checked out Laz's amazing interview with me that we did as part of the book launch just recently, I'm sure we can link it in with this episode as well to go back and see, because we talk a lot about more specifically that book journey of working together as well, which was really, just such a privilege to have you come and be part of that as well. So thank you.
Oh, it's the word privileged is just 100% how I feel for being in this space with you. I've obviously been obsessed with you ever since I met you, so it's like, wow.
Mutual. It's like that's our chat. Private chat is just pretty much a mutual love fest the entire time, so it's delicious.
That is not a lie, Walnut. Literally all of our conversations end in I love you, I love us.
And if it's not like that, I don't want it, right? Like when we get to manifest and decide how we want our businesses to run and how we want everything to feel, I'm like, that for me is what I desire. I don't want a coach that is just giving me the black and white, here's what to do to write your book. I want the person that I can like gush love at and affection at and be able to talk about what my tarot cards said that morning. And, you know,
I do love us so much. But what I find also really special about Soulpreneur, the book as well, is it's not, I love how you've described it, Rose, so you can touch on this in a second, but it's not a how-to guide. It's not a affirmation book. It's not a story time with Rose, but it has all of those elements in it. Did you have this idea when it was in creation, or has it just kind of flown into this beautiful piece of, as with all of the things you bloody put into the world, they're not in the special category kettle of fish, they're encompassing all the things, customized a la Rose?
So when I very, very first started writing it, it was coming through as the lived experiences. So that was kind of the first touch points for me, that I knew there was these certain number of lived experiences that tied through to soulpreneurship and being a soulpreneur, and they were the sort of, hey, this is what I've been through, and either you're going to resonate with that, or there's going to be similarities, or there's going to be some sort of soul lesson within that I can share. It then started to become more and more apparent that it was a book that was defying to be categorized. Which again is very I guess aligned with the rest of my business, that it defies being in any kind of particular business box. So of course my book was going to be like that as well. So yes, it did then welcome in all these other different ways of it being a resource that people can tap into, that, you know, women can tap into, whether it's reading an entire section, whether it is just opening to a random page, whether it is diving into the guided meditations that are included. You know, there's all of these different ways for people to connect with this. And I've actually already even had people say, you know, that they've read, say, a section, or they've listened to a section, and then they've also then seen it shared, that same bit, as just a single line or a couple of line quote, and they said, wow, I got something out of reading it here, but I also got something completely different out of just seeing it as a quote. And so that to me just was the most incredible feedback to receive, because that is what I was hoping it would be for people, that it could be as much as open on a random page and find something that's going to give you the soul support you need in that moment, or give you a journaling prompt in that moment, as, you know, as in addition to being something that you can read front to back if you want, and enjoy kind of the flow of the different sections within it. So it's just, you know, feels amazing to be sharing it with the world. And as you know, and I know you've talked about this a lot, that anything you put creatively out into the world also comes with huge walnutting in itself, and huge steps to have the self-confidence to put something out that any artist, any creative can always see ways to improve their craft, to improve their work. And there has to come a time when you've got to release it into the world imperfectly, perfectly, right?
Big thing, big deal, big part of Walnut Wednesday, the book as well, as with yours. So thank you so much for for sharing that, Rose. And obviously Walnut, we'll have all the links everywhere. And before we wrap up, can we do, since you have a copy right by you, can we do a little message for a walnut from a random page?
Sure. Okay. What can we do here? What can we do here? Oh, this was meant to be, because this is a bit where I actually talk about authorship. Okay. Just to set the context, I'm talking about a mastermind space I had started in, and we were going around the circle essentially to say what our intention was for how we desired to be recognized within that mastermind. The moment in which we were each able to give ourselves the permission slip to shine brightly where our soul truly desired to be seen. I remember the blood pounding in my ears and the clamminess of my palms as it came to be my turn to speak. My moment to set the new intention for my legacy as a soulpreneur. My invitation to step into my biggest vision for my soul work. I desire to be known as an author. That's from that page.
Thank you so much. I'm crying. I'm so gonna keep crying. I'm so proud of you, Rose. I'm so proud of you. I love this book.
I promise I didn't write it as just like to try and get tears. But if there's an emotional release that comes, I welcome it.
Oh, just so awesome and beautiful. And before I ask you the token question that you have already answered many moons ago, and wipe my tears away, Rose, if there is a walnut listening, like, holy fuck, I just want to do something, but I'm afraid, I feel peanutty even though I know I'm a walnut. Is there something on your heart that you feel like you haven't raised that this specific walnut needs to hear?
I think it's just really celebrating you for everything that you've probably ever thought was wrong with you. That's your magic. And if the only thing you can do is investigate how those things are actually your superpowers and reframe them in your mind's eye to be something that is taking it from a negative into a positive, then if that's one permission slip you can give yourself, that's what I truly believe is going to change so many people's lives.
Love that. Thank you so much. And I agree. And without further ado, I will ask Rose, what does being a walnut mean to you?
Being a walnut to me is all about celebrating your uniqueness and celebrating who you are and celebrating your unique version of success as well.
I love it. I agree.
All the feels.
It's good. Oh, I'm like,
all the feels.
How much more can I cry today? How much can I more cry on recording? Rose, where can the walnuts find you? We're going to put the links in. We're going to do all the things, but where do you hang out the most? How can we get up in your grill, like right this second? Tell us.
So I'm at Rose Tautari on all the things, mostly on Instagram. You can find me. Also, I have my podcast and YouTube channel called Cosmic Imprint, and rosetautari.com is where you can find me, and you can find all the links to all the things and explore and come down the rabbit hole with me, the cosmic rabbit hole with me. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing. And it is so much fun to be in Rose's world, Walnut, and very aesthetically pleasing. All Rose's as you can see if you've been watching this episode, so fucking beautiful. Everything just looks amazing. So, Walnut, thank you so much for your time and for being here and for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, share, take a little screenshot and tag Rose and I on the social medias. Jump in the walnut tree if you've got any more questions. Rose and I are more than happy to answer anything. And most of all, jump on Soulpreneur, the book. Link in the bio, link in all the comments, all the things. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Oh, and thank you, Rose. Thank you so much for your time, for all you do in the world, and for being yourself. And Walnut, I will talk to you next Walnut Wednesday. Bye.